I thought raising a baby dinosaur would be exciting. I did not realize it would turn my whole house upside down. It all began with a single egg warm silent and carrying a mystery I could not take my eyes off. Then at last the shell began to crack and a tiny new life started pushing its way into the world. The moment he stepped out, he looked confused, curious, and far too small for the trouble he would one day cause. From the very beginning, I tried to care for him, like family, even when something as simple as brushing his teeth felt completely unreal. He did not always like the routine, but little by little, he learned that my hands meant safety.
Whoa, whoa! Whoa, whoa!
And after every wild little adventure, he could fall asleep anywhere, as peaceful as if the world had always belonged to him. Then he discovered the robot vacuum, and suddenly the living room became his favourite moving throne. Watching him stand there so proudly, I already knew this tiny dinosaur was about to take over far more than just my home. At night, he would sit on the couch and watch cartoons like he had completely forgotten he was a dinosaur.
Pick one, buddy.
I tried to feed him properly, hoping a balanced meal might make life with him a little easier. That plan ended the second he discovered sweets because one bite was all it took for him to fall completely in love with sugar. And once the sugar kicked in, the calm little baby was gone, replaced by pure chaos with teeth. When he was covered in juice and trouble, I picked him up again because somehow the disaster still looked adorable in my arms. I figured the backyard would be the safest place for all that energy, so I gave him a ball and hoped for the best. He chased it across the grass like it was the most important mission of his life. At first, even the cat was not sure what to make of him, but curiosity quickly became the beginning of an unlikely friendship. Of course, peace never lasted long because the second he got bored, my shoes became his next great discovery. And once he moved on from shoes, the remote control did not stand a chance either. Some mornings I would walk in and realize he had turned one quiet room into a crime scene overnight. That was when I knew he needed more than toys and naps. He needed space training and a way to burn all that wild energy. The moment we stepped onto the grass, he looked like he had entered a whole new world. Every leaf, every flower, every butterfly felt important enough to chase. But curiosity and speed were a dangerous combination, and one bad move was all it took to send the whole fence flying. Even after all that chaos, he still ended the day sitting beside me, like the world's most innocent little movie buddy. Soon, movie night became one of his favourite rituals, because nothing made him happier than popcorn, a big screen, and acting like he owned the theatre. I even tried taking him grocery shopping, thinking a quick trip to the store might actually be manageable. That idea fell apart the second he realised every aisle was filled with snacks he could grab faster than I could stop him.
I promise.
Back at home, I kept trying to treat him like a kid, even if that meant putting him in ridiculous outfits he clearly did not need. But the truth was, he was growing more curious every day. Something as simple as a fishbowl could hold his full attention. That was when I decided he needed a stronger space outside, somewhere safer for both him and everything around him. Once the enclosure was ready, he treated it less like a cage and more like his own personal playground. Even then, I still want him to have a normal life.
Push with your feet.
So I kept taking him out, hoping the world would make room for who he was becoming. So I took him to the beach, hoping the open sand and crashing waves could handle the energy my house never could. The second he saw the surf, he charged straight into it, like the ocean had been waiting for him all along. He splashed through the water with so much joy that for a moment he did not look dangerous at all, just completely alive. Of course, a dinosaur on a public beach was never going to stay a secret for long. People came closer, phones and cameras in hand, while he stood there like he had no idea he was becoming a spectacle. But when the sun went down and the noise faded, it was just the two of us again watching the horizon, like nothing else in the world mattered. Hit even harder. He was growing too fast, too strong, and the house was starting to feel smaller every day. Even when he tried to rest, his body already took up more space than a normal life could give him. Then one day, all that size and strength spilled out into the street, and suddenly this was no longer just my problem.
Okay, back inside!
Out by the water, he moved with a confidence that made one thing painfully clear: this was no longer a pet trying to play. Beneath the surface, instinct took over, completely silent, focused, and older than anything I could teach. Back home, I tried one last time to keep things normal, but even feeding him now felt like standing too close to something wild. So I made the hardest decision
I'm
yet,
sorry.
because loving him was no longer the same as being able to keep him. When the transport team arrived, everything suddenly felt official, cold, and final. Even inside the holding corridor, he kept moving like a storm with nowhere left to go. When the struggle finally ended, he lay there, in the dark, exhausted, silent, and farther from home than he had ever been. Behind reinforced glass and glowing monitors, strangers began studying him like he was no longer a life, but a problem to be solved. Then came the paperwork, signatures, quiet voices, and the kind of decisions that change everything without making a sound. Street after street, ruin after ruin. He ran through the wreckage like something built for war, not raised with love. So they dragged him back again, battered, restrained, and treated less like a creature than a machine that needed repairs. In the lab, the next phase began: cold arms, metal tools, and a future that no longer belonged to nature at all. Piece by piece, they started changing him, not just healing what was broken, but turning him into something far more dangerous than the dinosaur I once knew. When the red lens lit up over his eye, it felt like the last trace of the old him disappeared. They mounted weapons onto his frame, piece by piece, not to save him, but to turn fear into a machine they could aim. And when they finally powered everything on the thing that stood there, was stronger, louder, and far more terrifying than anything nature had made alone. But the moment he tested that power against the walls around him, the lab learned the first Dutch rule too late: weapons do not always stay loyal to their makers. And when they sent soldiers to stop him, all they really did was prove how impossible it had become to control what they had created. It tore through the facility with metal claws and burning force, smashing past every machine that had once tried to control it. Then the world changed again, from smoke and darkness to open sunlight, wide sand, and a beach that had no idea what was coming.
No way.
But every step it left in the sand carried the same warning: this thing was real heavy and dangerously close. The moment panic sprayed through the crowd, the beach stopped feeling like a summer day and turned into a full-scale evacuation. Almost quiet, as if some buried memory was still fighting beneath all that steel. But peace did not last, and soon it turned away from the waves and headed inland, carrying the nightmare toward the roads and the city beyond. By the time the tanks rolled in, the city had already become a battlefield, and he stood in the middle of it like something built to survive war itself. From above the burning skyline, I could only watch and face the truth. The little dinosaur I raised was gone beneath all this metal and fire. Still, I tried one last thing. It wasn't command, just the smallest memory I hoped he might still remember. For a moment, his red eye locked onto me, and the whole world seemed to stop between one shot and one memory. But the machines inside him took over again, and the warning lights on his body said what I already knew: this fight was not over. And when that green core flared to life, it felt less like an ending and more like a warning, whatever he had become. When the blue fire erupted from his back, there was no doubt left anymore. This was no longer just a dinosaur, but a machine of war, fully awakened. Yet beneath the armor, burning power, one thing still remained: that same living eye, watching the world with pain and fury. Then a second Titan appeared through the smoke-green massive, and every bit as engineered for destruction as he was. And in the middle of all that ruin, something absurdly small drifted through the air. Then everything cut to static and simple, as if the world itself had glitched, leaving behind one final message: this story is not over yet.